Hi, my name is Jessica Jennings, and I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about the United States Congress. For the past 5 years since I graduated with my undergraduate degree in political science, I've worked in Washington, D.C. First, I worked for a member of Congress, actually one from Alabama. Then I moved over to a lobbying firm earlier this year. So needless to say, I feel pretty comfortable talking to you guys about what is going on in Congress and what they do on a daily basis. So let's get started. Behind me, you'll see a picture of the Capitol. Everybody's pretty familiar with the Capitol building, especially, the iconic Capitol Dome, but maybe not exactly what goes on inside of the walls. So that's what we're going to talk about today. On both sides of the dome, there are chambers. Now this is the House chamber here on this side. This is the Senate chamber here on this side. The two chambers are connected through underground tunnels that go underneath the Capitol. They also go underneath these streets that you can't see that are just outside of the frame here of this picture to connect to the House and Senate office buildings. So that's pretty cool. That means staff and members don't even have to go outside. They really don't even have to walk, at ground level. So it's pretty neat. So you'll see here on this side, I'm not sure if you can see, but there's a flag flown up the flagpole. That indicates the Senate was in session on the day this picture was taken. There is not a flag on the flagpole on the House side, which means the House was not in session. Now, frequently, they are in session at the same time, but in this case, they weren't. So that is the Capitol building, and now we'll move on to talk a little bit about each chamber, starting with the Senate, or the upper chamber. The Senate has 100 members. It's 2 per state, regardless of the state size. They serve 6-year terms, and currently the U.S. Senate is in a Republican majority. There are majority leaders, and there's also minority leaders. In the Senate, the majority leader is Mitch McConnell from Kentucky. The majority whip is John Cornyn from Texas. Now, for those of you who may not know what a whip is, Senator Cornyn basically, when they want to put legislation on the floor that maybe is controversial, they're not sure if they'll have enough votes to pass, they'll send Senator Cornyn out to whip, not literally but figuratively, the members to see how those members are going to vote. And in the case they don't have enough votes, perhaps they'll wait to bring that legislation up until they know that they can pass it. So goes hand in hand with the majority. Of course, there's the minority leadership as well. Currently, that is Harry Reid of Nevada and Dick Durbin of Illinois. And that is the Senate in a nutshell. So we'll now move on to the House of Representatives. The House has a lot more members. It has 435. Now, they determine the number of representatives per state based on the size of the state. So, for instance, Alaska has 1 congressman. States like California, Texas, they have, upwards of 20. So that's how they decide. They serve much, much shorter terms than the Senate at 2 years. Currently, they're also a Republican majority. So the names to know, the majority leadership in the House is Speaker Paul Ryan of Wisconsin. Now, he was just elected in the past couple months and was preceded by John Boehner of Ohio, who you may have heard of. Majority leader in the House is Kevin McCarthy of California, and the majority whip is Steve Scalise of Louisiana. Minority leadership in the House is Nancy Pelosi of California and Steny Hoyer of Maryland. Again, just a brief overview of the House. So now we'll move on to look at how a bill is passed. So anybody can introduce an idea for legislation, but a member of Congress has to be the one to bring it to their respective House. So a member of the Senate or a member of the House can introduce a bill. The only restriction is the Senate may not introduce a spending bill. Those are reserved strictly for the House. So after a senator or congressman brings a bill, introduces it, it goes to a committee. There's a committee on basically everything. So if there's not a committee on it, there's a subcommittee. They do things like hold briefings, hearings where they hear from witnesses, experts, to figure out, is this legislation the best it can be? Is it useful? Does it need to go forward for a vote in the House? In the event that it is reported out of committee, in the House, it will go to the floor for debate. where the debate is limited. The time for debate is limited, obviously, because there are so many representatives, and a lot of them have a lot to say, as you can imagine. In the Senate, on the other hand, when the bill goes to the floor, the debate is not limited, and this is where filibuster comes in, which you may have heard of. If you've ever seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, this is that. If a senator doesn't want a bill to move forward, he can filibuster it, basically by talking for a very, very long time until, the proponents of the bill basically give up. If they do come out of committee and they pass House or Senate, they go to the other chamber. If it passes the House, it goes to the Senate. If it passes the Senate, it goes to the House. It goes through the same process again. If it comes out the second time and it's passed the House and the Senate, if there are any differences between the House and Senate bills, they go to a conference where they try to work out their differences. Once a conference committee reports, both houses have worked it out, which actually just happened today with the federal highway bill, which funds your highways. It just came out of a conference committee today and passed, so it means it passed both the House and Senate and is now on its way to the President's desk to be signed into law. So that's the gist of how a bill is passed. Another really important thing that Congress does is they take on the appropriations process. Well, appropriations process is basically where they fund the federal government. They fund the things that you look to, such as, again, a highway bill, for example. They fund the Department of Transportation, which in turn funds the projects that you see happening out on the highways. If the appropriations process does not get done, that means that the money is not there. The projects ultimately do not get done either. So luckily today they were able to pass a major bill and let us know that there will be 5 years of reauthorization for the highways, which will now allow the Department of Transportation to fix the roads and not worry about an eventual interruption in funding, as can often be the case when Congress passes short-term fixes over and over again. So that's, again, now just a very brief overview of the appropriations process and how a bill is passed. I'm just putting up this information, which is your Alabama delegation, in case you are a resident of Alabama. One of these 7 fine representatives are your representative, and one of these gentlemen are your senators. Thank you.